That's over 1,000 ounces.
1,029.
Jeez. I'm overwhelmed.
In the world of reality television and extreme professions, few names resonate like Parker Schnabel, the relentless young miner who became the face of Gold Rush. From his early days on screen to leading million-dollar operations in some of the harshest terrains on Earth, Parker earned both respect and fame through sheer grit. Behind the gold and glory, troubling signs have begun to surface. Personal struggles, public tension, and whispers of burnout are painting a very different picture of the once unshakable star. What happened to Parker Schnabel, and could this be the end for his time on Gold Rush? Join us as we uncover shocking details that changes everything. Parker had one goal this past season: hit 10,000 ounces. Not because he needed it, but because failure just wasn't an option. Not for someone whose entire identity was built on pushing harder than anyone else. The target wasn't just ambitious, it was brutal. Dominion Creek, his latest claim, turned out to be a logistical nightmare. Harsh weather, treacherous terrain, and unreliable ground made even the simplest operations feel like an uphill battle. By mid-season, 2 of his biggest machines had broken down. Repairs cost hundreds of thousands, and that was the money he didn't have. The crew began to crack. Sleep-deprived, overworked, and under constant pressure, arguments flared. Parker's usual hands-on leadership became more controlling, more intense. Some even questioned whether safety was being pushed aside in the name of production. But Parker refused to back down. With cameras rolling and investors watching, failure wasn't just unacceptable, it was unthinkable. Still, the toll was mounting, and one key relationship was about to implode. For over a decade, Mitch Blaschke wasn't just Parker's mechanic, he was his right-hand man. Fans admired their dynamic duo: Parker, the intense strategist; Mitch, the laid-back problem solver who could fix just about anything. While Parker's professional life was falling apart in front of the cameras, something even more devastating was happening behind closed doors. Parker's private life has always been a mystery. Unlike other cast members, he rarely shares personal details, but those close to the production noticed a change in him during this season's filming. He looked distracted, worn down, at times outright defeated. When asked off-camera if he was okay, one crew member claimed he shrugged and said, "It's all gone, man. What's the point anymore?" Fans began digging. Some pointed to a quiet breakup with a woman he'd reportedly been seeing long-term. His focus wavered. During one crucial mining week, he was absent from the site for 3 straight days, something he'd never done before. The crew tried to pick up the slack, but it was clear something had broken. And it wasn't just about the gold anymore. Parker had always been a machine, cold, logical, obsessed with efficiency, but suddenly, he was slipping, making emotional decisions, lashing out in frustration. He stopped giving interviews, pulled back from fan engagement, and even avoided producers. That wasn't the Parker Schnabel fans had come to admire, but just when it seemed like he might find solid ground again, another crisis hit, and this time, it nearly bankrupted him. But the downfall wasn't over yet. Parker Schnabel has never been afraid of risk. It's what made him successful in the first place, betting on remote claims, reinvesting every dollar, and pushing farther than anyone else in the industry. But this time, his instincts may have finally betrayed him. Dominion Creek was supposed to be a gold mine, literally, a vast, untapped stretch of Yukon ground that Parker had scouted for years. He poured millions into the claim, confident it would be his next big win. The early reports looked promising, but as the season went on, the ground told a different story. Production slowed to a crawl. Yields fell drastically below projections. Some days, the sluice barely produced enough to cover fuel costs, and yet, the expenses kept climbing. The numbers were bleeding red, and fast. Behind the scenes, Discovery producers began to worry. According to a source close to the show, there were discussions about cutting down Parker's airtime, or even scaling back production entirely. Ratings were steady, but if the central star was spiraling financially and emotionally, the entire narrative was at risk. To make matters worse, Parker doubled down. In what some called a desperate move, he bought additional land nearby, convinced the original claim's borders were hiding the real gold. That investment alone reportedly cost over $1.2 million. Crew members were skeptical, but no one dared question him directly. He was chasing redemption, and there was no stopping him. The gamble didn't pay off. Weeks later, after massive excavation efforts, the new land came up dry. Parker didn't say much, but those on site described him as defeated. And when the numbers were finally tallied at the end of the season, the reality was brutal. Dominion Creek was one of Parker's worst seasons in terms of profit, maybe even the worst. For a man whose identity had always been tied to winning, the loss cut deep. But for fans, the next shock was even bigger. For more than a decade, Gold Rush, without Parker Schnabel, was unthinkable. He wasn't just a cast member. He was the driving force, the reason millions tuned in season after season. But as this past year unfolded, something shifted. Parker was quieter, more distant, and less visible than ever before. And for the first time, fans began asking a question no one dared voice before. Is Parker Schnabel about to quit? The clues were everywhere, if you were looking. Then came the season 15 teaser. Usually, Parker's presence dominates the preview, commanding machines, firing up the crew, chasing new records. But this time, something was off. His segments were shorter, more somber. No bold statements, no talk of goals, just quiet scenes of him walking Dominion Creek with his head down, notepad in hand, barely speaking. Fans flooded the comments. "Where's the fire in his eyes?" one asked. "He looks done," said another. Speculation exploded on Reddit and YouTube. Some claimed he was simply burned out. Others believed a major exit was being quietly planned by Discovery. It wasn't definitive, it wasn't dramatic, but it was honest. For someone who had always brushed off retirement talk or joked about mining until he couldn't stand, this was something else entirely. A rare crack in his armor. Fans didn't take it lightly. Comments poured in, begging him not to leave. Some said the show wouldn't survive without him. Others were more understanding. He's given us everything. If he needs to walk away, he's earned that. Even fellow miners weighed in, with Rick Ness sharing a post saying, "You've carried the show longer than anyone should. Do what's right for you, brother." Still, Parker said nothing more. No confirmation, no denial, just more silence. And that silence started to feel like an answer in itself. But as rumors spread, another storm was brewing. And this time, it got personal. His response wasn't fiery or defensive. It was cold, controlled, and exhausted. There was no sense of outrage, just a weary clarity that seemed to come from someone who's dealt with too much, too often. Some fans praised his restraint, saying it showed maturity. Others wondered if the lack of specifics meant he was still hiding something. And while the interview seemed to put the worst of the rumors to bed, the episode didn't end on a triumphant note. It ended with Parker sitting alone by the creek, boots in the mud, staring out over a sight that had taken everything from him. For longtime viewers, it was hard to watch. The young prodigy who once talked about taking over the world now looked like a man deciding whether it was worth staying in it. But there was still one final move no one expected. Just when fans thought Parker had vanished for good, he resurfaced, not at a mine, not at an event, but back in Haines, Alaska, the place where it all began. And while some thought this was a break, others saw it for what it might really be, a farewell. Parker was first spotted at a local fundraiser for small businesses affected by recent flooding. A few photos leaked online showed him speaking with locals, laughing quietly with old friends, but with a weight in his expression that longtime fans instantly recognized. He looked older, not in age, but in spirit. Unlike his past visits, there was no Discovery crew following him, no film permit notices, no signs of content being gathered. This wasn't a PR move, it was personal. Locals said he spent time visiting familiar spots. The high school where he gave his first interview, the quiet trails near his grandfather's old cabin, the dock where he used to sit as a teenager, sketching out future claims on scraps of paper. One resident shared, "He looked like someone trying to remember what it felt like before the cameras, before the pressure." A short clip went viral on social media. Parker standing in front of a small crowd at the Haines Community Center. He didn't say much, just a few words about giving back and how this place made him who he is. But at the end of the clip, he pauses, glances down and adds, "Maybe it's time to come home for good." The internet exploded. Was this his retirement announcement? A quiet exit from mining? Or just a reset before launching into a new season? No one knew for sure. Discovery remained silent. So did Parker. But those who'd followed him from the start recognized the signs. This wasn't the restless energy of a man preparing to strike gold again. It was the stillness of someone closing a chapter. And yet, in that return to Haines, there was something else. A kind of peace. For a man who'd spent his adult life chasing pay dirt and carrying a show on his shoulders, the small-town stillness might have been the first breath he'd taken in years. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't dramatic, but it said everything. And if this really is the end, then all that's left is one question. Parker Schnabel's story was never just about gold. It was about obsession, drive, and the pressure of living up to a legacy that began long before he ever stepped behind the wheel of an excavator. He rose from a teenager with something to prove to a global figure in one of the most unforgiving industries on Earth. And for over a decade, he didn't just survive, he dominated. But every empire hits a breaking point. Whether Dominion Creek was a rare misstep or a final chapter remains unclear. What is clear is that Parker has changed. The fiery, ambitious miner who once scoffed at sleep now looks like someone searching for peace, not just profit. The quiet return to Haynes, the cryptic interviews, and the growing silence all point to a man rethinking what success really means. If this is the end of Parker Schnabel's journey on Gold Rush, then it's one that ends not with a bang, but with a deep, uncertain breath. Not every legend needs a dramatic exit. Some just fade into the places that made them. And maybe that's the greatest twist of all. Because for a man who once chased gold across continents, he may have finally realized the most valuable thing was never in the ground. Do you think this is truly the end for Parker Schnabel, or just the calm before his biggest comeback? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe for further updates.